Now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, let's bring in Arise analyst Constance Ikwoku. Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Good morning, Yolanda.
Lovely to see you today.
Lovely to see you today. And good morning to Nkechi and Charles.
Good morning, Dr. Constance.
Dr. Ikwoku.
I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Charles is muted.
It was one long road trip, but
Okay.
let me spare you the details.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Good to see everyone today. To look at the papers with us, we have Dr. Ibrahim Modibo. He is a media executive and political commentator. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day. There we have June 12th. Abubakar Umar reveals names of 38 unsung military officers who backed MKO Abiola. Colonel Abubakar Umar, retired, was one of those who fought for the restoration of June 12. And in this report, he names other ex-military officers who he said risked their lives at the time to support MKO Abiola. They include Colonel M.A. Garba, Lieutenant Colonel Lawal Jafaru, Lieutenant Colonel U.F. Ahmed, Lieutenant Colonel M.S. Dasuki, Lieutenant Colonel M.L. Gwadabe, Lieutenant Colonel Olagusonya Oyulola, among others. We know that the president bestowed national honor on Umar, and I guess he believes these 38 men need to be recognized or at least mentioned. Not sure what to make of this report, but it is a fascinating article and an account of what transpired during that period, especially because there's the general perception that the military was against civilian rule. Now we are hearing this, and I'm sure this is the first time many Nigerians are hearing that there were military officers who actually were in favor of MKO Abiola being sworn in as president. Dr. Modibo, can you speak to how relevant or consequential this is to the June 12th conversation?
I think, thank you very much, Dr. Constance, and good morning to all the panelists. I think June 12 is an embodiment of conscience of Nigerians, a move towards democratic journey, which is believed to be the fairest and the freest of almost all elections in Nigeria since independence. At that point in time, Chief MKO Abiola of the SDP won in 21 out of 30 states, including the FCT. And honestly and sincerely, it was a unanimous decision of Nigerians that MK Abiola was the answer. So in so doing, these people had to calibrate, especially some of these military officers like Colonel Umar, Lawal Gwadabe, as you've mentioned, a lot of them were part and parcel of the struggle. They believed that democracy was it. And therefore, anything that will temper with the democratic journey was an anathema, and they were not comfortable with it. Some of them have resigned, threw away the towel, and they did the struggle, and it was a very, very fantastic struggle based on conscience, based on the feeling that as military officers, they have to run with the tempo of democracy. But my major concern is there are also some civilians, like late Senator Dr. Jonathan Zungina, who was the DG of Abiola's campaign organization, who has never been mentioned in the award something. I think there's great traversal of justice when it comes to people like this, and Sule Lamido, and so many others, Abubakar Rimi, so many people who are part and parcel of the struggle. And I think, in all honesty, this award should not just be limited to this year. I think there's a need to have it moved maybe to next year and see how some of these people could also be part of this, so as to give them self-fulfillment in terms of their position and policies and programs. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so many people, like you mentioned, were involved in this struggle. Let's take another story in this day on the Benin art pieces. A U.S. museum returns looted artworks to Benin Kingdom. We have some photos in page 41 of this day if you want to pick a copy. Let's pull that up, please. These pieces were returned from the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, and the ceremony was held at the Nigeria House in New York, and they will be delivered later to the Oba of Benin in Nigeria. Again, Dr. Modibo, most of these pieces were stolen in the 1800s, and we have thousands still scattered all over the Western world, sold and bought by art dealers for money. Africa had a rich history that was desecrated, wasn't it?
Yes, Dr. Constance, in our journey to nationhood, we have seen so many travails and triumphs in terms of the way Nigeria had been and the way Nigeria should be. And part of these travels is the stolen Benin artifacts. I think is part of our heritage. Is something that all Africans should be proud of, because Benin, if you look out from the dawn of history, it has been a center of excellence, a center of cultural heritage, where we find, people have revered the cultures of Africa through the Benin artifacts. It portrayed the African culture, it portrayed the African beauty, and in terms of artistry, in terms of architecture, in terms of feeling the Africanness in us, the Benin culture had been of great importance and of paramount to our cultural heritage. Therefore, I think it's a very welcome development that these stolen arts and artifacts are being brought back, because it's part of our civilization. Whether we like it or not, it is part of African culture, part of Nigerian civilization, and part of our history. And therefore, just like all philosophers used to say, that if experience is not retained, infancy is perpetual. We are bound not to forget the past with a view to molding the future. So I think it's a welcome development, and I commend them for having the conscience of returning the artifacts to Africa. Otherwise, if it's some people, they will not even return it. Just like slavery and slave trade, there should be repatriation. People have suffered, people have been forced to go and labor in Western countries to develop them. And therefore, there's a need for them to pay us. Let us have conscience, so that there will be retributive justice in terms of all these pitfalls. Doctor.
If I can add to what Dr. Modibo just said, talking about how the artifacts are received of our history. But I think the bigger picture for Nigeria would be that every return should raise the stakes for our conservation infrastructure, right? We have this Museum of West African Arts that's coming up in Benin City, climate-controlled vaults, labs. So it won't be a story of Africa cannot look after its art as well. So as it's coming back, the Bronze's homecoming shouldn't just be about righting historical wrong. It should give Nigeria an opportunity to convert this cultural equity into economic capital and so forth.
Well said. But it's also interesting when people talk about Africans or ask the question, can they keep, or preserve their pieces? But these pieces were there, preserved by Africans themselves for centuries before they were stolen. So I don't think that should be a conversation to even come. And the quality, the fact that they are still, preserved up till now, and they are still tangible, that speaks to the quality of the work that was done. And I think people are very dismissive of Africans, and at the same time we buy into that narrative of dismissing ourselves.
That's true. And if you don't mind, Dr. Constance, I'd just like to say very quickly that I feel that it's a bit unfair to just return these bronzes. There should be some compensation that should come along with it. We all know that these bronzes were stolen. It is stated, it has been said, there needs to be some sort of, compensation that goes along with it. You can't just return them and then say, oh, we apologize for what has happened in decades past. I don't feel that that's good enough.
Well, that ties into the bigger conversation about reparations.
Absolutely.
Some people agree, some don't agree, but let's move on from that story. We have a Daily Sun this morning. FGA halts controversial dues for private firms, sets a 25 million naira interim cap. The decision to suspend the dues followed wide consultation with the business community, according to the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. The halt to the implementation of the contentious provisions of the Financial Reporting Council Act 2023 will be temporary. The dues range from 0.02% to 0.05% of company turnover, with no upper ceiling for certain private firms. So what's happening here is that many businesses are bleeding in the light of the current economic conditions, and concessions are being requested of the federal government. And Charles, this case is an example of the government actually listening to the concerns of the private sector in order to see where they can be helped, something to be done in certain cases where they feel that the government really needs to intervene.
Actually, the private sector in most developed countries happens to be the real drivers of the economy. And if that culture is also being instituted here in Nigeria, I think it's a very, very big plus for our economy. And having said that, well, that policy now would definitely go a long way towards making, the conduct of business a lot easier and much more convenient. But we also hope that, the new tax regime being instituted by the president will also in some way favor the private sector, a deliberate policy towards ensuring that the climate of business is actually being enhanced and sustained, because, like I earlier said, the private sector are the real drivers of the nation's economy.
True. Let's move on to New Telegraph. PDP crisis intractable as confusion mass scheduled NEC meeting. Governor Umar Southeast reserves the right to review future with PDP if we need dedicated members to rebuild PDP ahead of 2027, says Bode George. The National Executive Committee meeting is scheduled for today. Governor Peter Mba of Enugu State is said to be fed up with the conflict in the party and has expressed this after a meeting with Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, Adolphus Wabara, among others. He maintains that the Southeast will have to evaluate membership of the PDP if its stance on National Secretary issue is not honored. I don't know, Dr. Modibo, what are the options for the Southeast here, and can they make good this threat, or do you think there will be an attempt to patch up? They have been a very reliable bloc for the People's Democratic Party.
Yes, Dr. Constance, if you look at the Southeast, it's a bloc. In terms of democratic propositions or in terms of democratic culture of this country, Southeast has always been known to be a PDP stronghold. And therefore, to me, it seems as if the spoiler in this whole setup is FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, whom I see as a tragic hero in this whole setup. Because for him to insist against the will of the Southeast that Anyao should be the secretary, in spite of the fact that the Southeast have resisted it, they said this is the person they want, which is in conformity with democratic culture, I think is tragedy. And that is what is happening to the PDP as a political party. To me, it is a sort of lamentation. Misappropriated glories and perverted ancestry of the PDP, especially within the confines of the Southeast. The fact that PDP has been there for a very long time and has been able to stand its ground as a party to beat, for these problems to be arising because of the interest of one man, maybe for the possibility of even killing the party against the government in power. I think that is a tragedy. That is why I said, to me, it seems as if he's a tragic hero trying to torpedo this party. But the beauty is, today, the two working committee and caucus meetings will be held simultaneously. I don't know how it will end, but I just pray that PDP does not have a final burial right or total collapse within the political dynamics of Nigeria. I just hope they'll be able to sit down, iron out their differences, and move forward, because without opposition, democracy is as good as dead. Therefore, the PDP is very, very fundamental, very important in this journey to our democracy. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, there will be more after the meeting today, I'm sure. The Punch newspaper, Hurricane Tinubu, APC launches fresh moves to pull 5 governors. The party is weighing these governors, and according to this report, this includes governors of Bayelsa, Rivers, Kano, and either Abia or Enugu. It says this is imminent and will happen within 2 months. We know that there have been talks with Rivers Governor. On Kano, Alhaji Umar Ganduje, the APC chairman, resigned over the weekend to smoothen talks with Rabiu Kwankwanso. And as for Enugu, the governor has said before that he's not leaving the PDP. At least he's been reported to have said that. So the dynamics are changing with the APC intent on redrawing the electoral map. Nkechi, I don't know if you want to come in here. It's game on.
It's game on. And even the former president of the Senate, Saraki, said that on Arise. He said at least 2 governors, two bigwigs, might be moving to the All Progressive Congress. And I think one of the reasons is because of this story that we just took in the other paper. When you're talking about the implosion that's happening in the opposition parties, you see that the people in the party, like you said, the Southeast that have been loyal to the party are even tired of the party. When they're having this internal wrangling, how can you then ask Nigerians to trust you to take over from the APC come 2027? So I think that distrust in the party, uncertainty within the PDP is also pushing people to move to the All Progressives Congress.
All right, Delhi Independent, forest risk, others push airlines to pursue dry lease with states. 9 months after discussions, Nigerian airlines still struggle to lease aircrafts. Several factors: inadequate infrastructure, then lack of maintenance facilities, global shortage of aircrafts, insurance bottlenecks, foreign exchange challenges, past breaches of previous lease agreements, all combined to make it a tough environment. Now airlines are approaching state governors for finance and guarantee. Yolanda, I'd like you to come in here, because financial institutions, locally and internationally, are more willing to grant state governments loans due to the the legal and contractual obligations of government borrowing. This article has explained, but we do not have all the details of these talks with the governors. However, don't they have enough on their plates already? Some of them can't pay salaries, and they are struggling to boost their local economy.
Very true, but every decision has its pros as well as its cons. You know, the look at the forex risks that are involved here create so many operational, problems, but as well operational flexibility. If airlines are able to dry lease, that also provides a greater opportunity for these airlines to then now make their own decisions, find ways to pay in local currency, and so on and so forth. So it's, is it a long-term viable thing? I don't know. I wish more details were available for this story, but in my opinion, I believe that this dry leasing is a good way forward because it allows people the flexibility to operate in ways that they can manage themselves.
All right, quickly, Abuja Inquirer, FCT teacher strike, which has been on for a while. Abuja elders demand urgent action. We also have Vanguard newspaper, PDP crisis, factions hold parallel neck meetings. And then finally to the Guardian newspaper. Do we have the Guardian here? I can't seem to find it. Okay, so let's go to the international headlines. Daily Graphic: government won't interfere in public varsities, according to the vice president. This is in regard to governance and operations of these universities. The government wants them to have academic freedom. Moving on to the Citizen newspaper, we did it to save South Africa. The DA says it loves South Africa and won't leave the government of national unity. And then the metro.co.uk health secretary weighs in on the Glasgow row. Get your own house in order, says Israeli embassy needs to take violence against Palestinians more seriously. We saw that story over the weekend. The comments arose from the musicians at the Glastonbury festival, where they were chanting death to the Israeli military. Yolanda, you can weigh in here. And so they're saying, a lot of people condemn them, but others are also saying this brings attention to the fact that the Israelis have to change course in what is happening in Gaza.
There's a lot to unpack there, but I want to just keep the focus on the fact that this is at a concert. This is not the place to bring about, controversial topics where anything can go wrong. Crowds can break out into violence, and they can be stampedes as they've been in the past. And freedom of speech doesn't necessarily always mean freedom of speech. You have to learn when to exercise that. And these days, you have to be careful as well with what you say, because you will be held accountable by the law, especially in the West.
They are being held accountable. Yeah,
absolutely.
The BBC is being questioned about the live coverage and all of that. On to the Guardian newspaper. Iran still has nuclear capacity, according to UN officials. So while President Trump had said that it completely obliterated the nuclear facilities, indications are that it's not the case, according to the UN nuclear watchdog. Comments, please, Charles, if you want to quickly.
President Trump most probably preempted himself when he said that Iran's nuclear capability had been completely obliterated. And that was also in direct conflict with reports from his own intelligence agencies. But well, he appeared to know more than they did, but this time around, that position is also being contended by the International Atomic Energy Agency. So Iran is not as completely crippled as President Trump believes. But then I think, too, that what the world should be doing would be working towards peace and reconciliation and not encouraging the development of a nuclear capacity, because any nuclear strike is going to have a multiplier effect on the rest of the world.
So what do you do with, Dr. Modibo, quickly, we're out of time. What do you do with those that already have nuclear weapons?
You see, Dr. Constance, thank you for this opportunity. I had wanted to jump in because if you look at the hypocrisy under Donald Trump's administration in the US, is something that is highly lamentable. It is a source of concern that Donald Trump is aiding and abetting the formation of nuclear weapons in Israel, while also trying to destroy that of Iran. So you can see the level of hypocrisy. Why are you supporting one and then leaving the other? Is it a crime to have nuclear weapons, especially in terms of defense of your own country? So many countries have nuclear weapons. So why should America concentrate only on Iran and try to destroy it? Then finally, I want to talk about these children in FCT. Dr. Constance, is a sad thing that this minister will be busy opening roads and what have you, but these children in primary school, for 3 months, they are staying at home because of salary, non-payment of salary and strike of the teachers. It is highly lamentable and regrettable because the future of this country lies in education. Once we don't have educated elite, we are going to provide vandals that will be destroying things that government has built, including the roads that they are talking about. And about university autonomy, university is universality, and therefore it is a place.
Hey, Dr. Modibo.
Thank you. It's all right.
Unfortunately, we are always pressed for time, but thank you so much, Dr. Ibrahim Modibo, a media executive and political commentator, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glastonbury is always a place for political and cultural drama. Okay. Don't book punk bands if you don't want them to do punk stuff.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Constance Ikoku, for joining us this Monday morning on Daybreak. That's all the time we have for you here. I am Kichi Nana.
And I'm Charles Eruka. It's goodbye from me.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Bye-bye.